Hello and welcome back. This is episode 1 of a 5-part ACR growth series. And the subject of this episode today is the real reason your e-commerce business isn't growing. Why your growth problems are system problems and not marketing problems. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. At the center of any business is obviously your e-commerce store. Now, your e-commerce store is traditionally covered by 3 surrounding areas that you need to actually scale a profitable e-commerce business. And they are acquisition, conversion, and retention. Now, if we take a little bit more of a detailed look at acquisition, what do we mean by acquisition? Well, acquisition essentially looks like in multiple ways. It's paid ads, either through Meta, Google, or TikTok. Essentially, it's the traffic to your store that gets eyeballs on your product. This can be via organic or content strategies, paid strategies, any essential eyeballs on the brand. And what you're essentially looking at here is channel attribution and how do you get more people to look at your brand. Then coming across to conversion. Now, conversion is focused essentially on bringing those eyeballs not only to the brand, but to get them to take an action, typically a purchase that drives revenue for your business. Now, things that we focus on in this space are typically conversion rate optimization, average order focus and upsells, bundles, offer architecture, user experience, and checkout friction removal. And the third key component is your retention system. Now, the retention system typically made up of email marketing. This includes your list growth, automated flow sequences, profitable email campaigns, audience segmentation, and most importantly, and the most important metric of any successful, profitable e-commerce business is lifetime value and your repeat purchase strategy. So I'm going to take a little bit of a look into these in a little bit more detail as we go through the 5-part series, but this episode today is specifically looking at the system diagnosis. So where most founders tend to focus all of their time is on more ads, bigger budgets, increasing ROAS, and this is essentially where 100% of most e-commerce brands owners' focus goes. They only focus on acquisition. What often happens is the neglect for your e-commerce store means that you assume that the store will convert, you assume that it works, it's very rarely audited, and it's never treated as a constraint. However, I want to spend a bit of time on this now. If you believe that your store is high converting, which it absolutely has to be a successful business, and you're not auditing that store to identify the different friction points, the different points for which the customers drop off, and you continue to increase ad spend and you continue to increase that push of traffic to your store, it is very, very likely that you're trying to solve the wrong problem. And then coming across to retention. Now, almost always absent whenever I audit most brands is any form of post-purchase flows. There's no real email architecture, and the actual lifetime strategy for a business is almost non-existent. Most brands think it's okay to send the odd campaign here and there, maybe 1 or 2 a week or even 2 a month, and they typically broadcast this to their entire email list. So there's no segmentation, there's no unique customer journeys, and there's no real automation that's allowing you to generate revenue in the background of your business without you needing to apply any real method or any real effort. So let's break this down in a bit more detail. So what a broken system typically looks like. You've got traffic that you're paying for, and the traffic that you're paying for typically doesn't convert. And what we typically see is around 98% non-conversion rates for most e-commerce brands. So to put that into a little bit more perspective, if you're sending 100 people to your store, 98 of them are going to leave without purchasing. 98. Now, bearing in mind, you've paid for those 98 people to visit your store through paid acquisition, whether that's Facebook ads, Google ads, TikTok ads, whatever it might be. You've paid for that traffic to arrive at your store. And the typical reason for this is because the conversion rate for the store is below 2%. Which means that despite any volume of people that you drive to your store, what you are going to see is a significant dropout because that conversion rate optimization isn't there to convert those visitors and that traffic into customers. And most commonly seen in a broken system is there is no retention strategy. So not only are you paying to bring all of these customers to your website, but most of them are dropping away and you're therefore not able to bring them back and retain them for future. So That's the problem. That's the problem state that I see with most e-commerce brands that want to be profitable, that want to hit your 100K, 200K months, and are stuck typically around the sort of 10 to 15K mark. So it's not necessarily a bad business. It's the fact that the business isn't working for them. So they've got a proven product. They've got sales. Brilliant. They're off to a good start. But in terms of the system diagnosis and the reason that they can't scale, they'll always focus so much attention and effort around meta ads and around their acquisition, but there's two other key component parts of the system that need equal levels of attention. So what does a functioning system look like? Functioning system looks like a 3 to 5% conversion rate minimum. Now, I work with clients and some of their conversion rates, after doing some conversion rate optimization work and some other kind of checkout friction removal and average order value work on the websites, typically hit around 8 to 9% conversion rates. But as long as you hit that 3 to 5% conversion rate, you're in a much better place in terms of converting that cold traffic. What I typically see as well from high profitable brands is they've got around about a 30% repeat purchase rate. Now this means that 30% of those customers are coming back and buying time and time again. Okay, this repeat purchase rate will look very, very different for subscription model brands. So assume this is non-subscription model. This is purely just kind of a normal kind of single purchase type kind of environment. And the other key factor to a functioning working system is the fact that you have 30 to 40% of your revenue for your business coming directly from email. Now, I cannot stress or emphasize this enough. By bringing traffic to your website and not converting them and allowing them to leave and then paying for them again through acquisition costs and bringing them back to your website through retargeting, through broad adverts, whatever it might be, and not capturing that kind of email list growth. I've got a further episode on this in kind of, I think it's episode 4. We're going to go through this in a bit more detail, but I cannot emphasize how important it really is to actually capture some form of email from the customer to bring them into your ecosystem, which means there's not a reliance on paying for them to come back to you. Because when you're paying for that customer to come back, that's constantly eating into your acquisition costs, which ultimately eats into your margins, which ultimately eats into your P&L. So what a functioning system looks like: 3 to 5% conversion rate, 30% repeat purchase rate, 30 to 40% revenue from email, and increasing lifetime value. Now, I'm going to probably do a whole different episode on this because I think the lifetime value measure is really, really mistaken and not very well understood by most brands. Lifetime value, if you cannot measure a 30, 60, 90-day lifetime value for your customers, then you're in a little bit of trouble. Because what we need to be able to do when we're running highly profitable e-commerce brands is we need to be able to have a level of predictability and forecasting ability to understand where those next sales are coming from. Because paid ads is essentially, it's a method of bringing traffic, but it's not a predictable method to bring sales, okay? Likewise, conversion, you can have the highest optimized store in the world, but if that traffic doesn't quite hit the store, then you're reliant again in a bit of a problem. So what you're left with is really trying to focus in on those customers that you've previously acquired. They are in your ecosystem. They have paid you for a product. Therefore, they are in a degree of trust higher than new customers. And it's about increasing that lifetime value and ensuring that you've got a good degree of predictable growth. So one of the key points here, and talk a lot about constraints on this channel because I think it's one of the main kind of focus points that most brands miss. And it's really, really important because if you can identify a constraint in any business, even outside of e-commerce, a lot of it stems from my background as a Lean Six Sigma consultant. Constraints allow you to identify problems in your business, mitigate those problems to a root cause level, put measures in place to correct them, to then stem your business and move it forward to the next point. Now, more often than not, that means you're moving from one constraint to the next constraint, but each constraint you remove from your business allows scalable, profitable growth to be far easier to achieve. So every business has a constraint, and the single point that limits throughput more than any other. Now, what I typically see with most brands is they believe that their ads are a constraint. How many times you hear, I just need to get more people to my website. I just need to get more traffic to my website. Now, fundamentally, what you need to really, really, truly understand is what is the true constraint, because until you identify the constraint and you resolve it, there's no other intervention that you can control as a brand owner to actually produce results. Most growth interventions as well actually only target a single variable. And what I mean by this is if you're fixing problems for your brand in isolation, for example, run more ads, fix one email, rebuild one page, what you're actually doing is you're contributing marginal improvements, but those results that you get will be marginal. They will not be system-led. They will not cover the entire system. Let me break that down in a bit more detail. What I mean by that is, if you decide that actually we're going to send more emails because we believe we can drive more profitable growth, we can drive more predictable revenue for the business if we send more email campaigns. We're currently sending one email a week. Let's go and send 2 emails a week. Now, the logic behind that, as a founder of that business, probably sounds pretty sound. However, if you are going to drive that email revenue, email traffic back to a store that doesn't convert, or back to an offer that doesn't resonate, or back to a customer that has already purchased the product you're advertising, you're not going to get the results you need. So rather than asking the question, do I need to send more emails? Look at what emails you've sent already, look at what has worked, and essentially assess if there's any constraints in that space. It might be the fact that your open rate's incredibly low. It might be the fact that your click-through rate's incredibly low. Look at the segmentation. Look at who you're sending those emails to. Are you sending those emails to the right customers? Are you sending them at the right time? Are you sending them the right kind of content that allows them to actually trigger a purchase? Do they even know enough about your product? So they might have purchased a product before, but they actually know enough about your brand, because emails are not just sell, sell, sell. Buy this now, 10% discount, 15% discount. Actually, the worst performing email campaigns I've ever seen are always discount led, because they devalue the product, and often they're sent at really, really poor times. One of my biggest pet hates and my biggest frustrations in e-com in general, I've got a list of them, but this is definitely one of the top 5, is when brands run a campaign for a new product. They run the campaign for 2, 3, 4 weeks. People purchase that product, and then at week 6, the brand puts that product on sale. There is no better way to lose customer faith than to implement these sorts of practices. So that would be an example of a marginal input that the founder believes is important, but actually it doesn't do anything for the fundamental system. So recap very, very quickly. Your e-commerce store, front and center, your profitable business that you're trying to grow. 3 key fundamental pillars to ensure success of that business that you can actually drive. Acquisition, conversion, retention. Acquisition, bring in eyeballs to the brand, bring in traffic to see what it is you are selling and how you're selling it. Conversion, having the highest possible converting website that you can have that not only converts customers, but provides the opportunity to increase average order value via upsells, bundles, whatever it might be. And that is all structured around offer architecture. As I said, I've got another couple of episodes coming up, but I'm going to focus individually on these 3 areas. So I'm going to do one on acquisition, one on conversion, and one on retention. And then retention, email marketing and list growth. I cannot emphasize how important the list growth element to this is. So list growth, the best form of list growth, high converting sign up form. Now I'll let you in on a little bit of a secret, something that's running really, really well across the brands that I work with at the moment, quiz forms. If you can implement a quiz type form on your website that captures emails, you will increase your sign up rate tremendously. Our average sign-up rate for clients at the moment is between 11 and 13%, which is beyond industry standard. It's considered great if you're hitting a sort of 10% sign-up. So to go beyond that is really, really good. And it's really important to be doing this. Now, I'm filming this at the time, but we're just coming out of Q1, going into Q2. By the time you get to Q4 and you're achieving a 10%, 12%, 13, 14% even submit rate, and you've got good levels of traffic coming to your website, by the time Q4 comes, you are going to have a very healthy email list that you can generate revenue from. So without going into this in a bit too much detail, I've got more episodes coming up on these individually, where I'm going to kind of dive into them in a little bit more detail. I want to leave you with one diagnostic question that I always think is really, really telling and will give you a very good idea as to how your system is currently performing, because you need to think about your brand as a system, right? Your brand isn't just, I'm going to run ads, or I'm going to just send emails, or I'm going to have the best looking website in the world. It's much, much more than that. It is a whole ecosystem of how you bring eyeballs to the product, how you convert that product into sales, and then how you actually increase lifetime value. So, diagnostic question I want to leave you with. If your ad spend went to zero tomorrow, what would your business look like in 90 days? So if you completely turned off all of your paid ads tomorrow, what would your business look like in 90 days? Now, if the answer to that is troubling you, your system absolutely needs fixing before you increase any form of spend on your meta ads. Okay, thank you for joining me today. And as I said, this is episode 1 of 5. We have more episodes coming over the next couple of weeks. So tune in. Thank you.